In this tutorial video, we're going to create our first HTML document. Really exciting. The first thing I did is I opened a Notepad file. To do this, you can go to your window and search Notepad, and you will see it should bring up the program. Go ahead and click on that and open it. Next, we want to save our file. It's important to start we save our files. That way we have proper management and we always know that it's saved. I'm going to go ahead and navigate to that folder I created to save all my class documents in. I'm going to save this lecture week 2.html. Make sure whatever you choose, you save the back as .html. That way it'll open as a web file. Then we'll click Save. Now, if we were creating the first page of our website, it would be an index.html. Each website always starts with a file named index.html. Let's just check and see that it's saved. So I'm going to go back into my folder, and I can see my file saved here. So the first thing we want to do is we want to tell the Notepad file what we're doing. So we're going to do a caret, and we're going to do a doc type HTML. Now we've identified what kind it is. Now let's identify the language. HTML lang equals the en and caret. Now the next thing we want to do is we want to put the head in our document. So it's kind of like looking at a human. You have your head and your torso. So we'll call this our head and our body in our document. So we open our head tag. We put carets around all our tags in our HTML documents. Next we come down and let's open our title tag. Now a title isn't traditionally what you're thinking of, something you see when you first log onto a web page. A title is actually the tab name up at the top here. So like this one is CNN Breaking News. We're going to title ours Lecture Week 2. Then we close our title tag. So when we're actually working in the HTML tags, we open a tag and we close a tag. We'll do the same thing all the way throughout. Now the next thing we do is we add our meta tag information to this. We're going to use a standard meta tag information that is common for HTML documents. You'll be able to use it throughout this class and when you're developing. We'll do meta char set equals UTF.8. And that's a very common meta tag. At this point, we're going to close our head because we've opened it, now we close it. Now let's go ahead and put the body in our document. The body is going to be the area in our document where all our text goes, so all this information here is our body. So we just open the tag by typing body. Now this is where we could put text into it. We're going to go ahead and just type my first HTML file. Then I'm going to go ahead and just close my body, close my HTML file, and save. Right now I've created my first web page I can test. Let's go over the template before we test though to ensure you have everything that you need. It's really important to get this part down and practice it because this is the foundation we'll use throughout this whole class. So we have our document type, our language, our head, our title, our character set. We closed our head, open our body, have all our information for our main page, closed our body, and closed our HTML file. Let's go ahead and test our page. At this point, we can go ahead back into our file that contains our HTML, and we can double click and open it in our browser. you can see in your browser, and depending what browser you open yours in, it may look different than mine. We have my first HTML file, which is just what we did. So congratulations, we've created our first document. I'm sorry, please ignore the warnings coming up on the side down there. So at this point, we can go back to our document and we can add more. One thing we can add is we're going to add a comment section that we're going to use on our homework assignments. This way, when I open several assignments, I'll know whose assignment it is. To do this, we're going to go up into our head section. For our head section, sorry. We'll put the following code. Here we would put our comments, so we'll say in class lecture. Now the user isn't going to see that who's viewing your web page. The only ones who are going to see this are people that open it like you on the back end to actually look at the page. So let's stop, pat yourself on the back. You've created your first document. You've now added comments to it. Now we can do other things on our web page, such as we can add different levels of headers. A header is an element that adds some formatting into our page. Let's go back to CNN. This would be a header at the top here. You can see it's larger text and it's drawn to get your attention. So let's go back into our body. I'm just going to hit enter. And I'm going to open a header. To open a header 1, which is the biggest header, I just type H1. You always want to make sure you're typing in lowercase. It's better for the standard of coding we're currently using. We then need to close our header. If we don't close it, it'll continue to read through our page. So now I've made my first HTML file big. Let's test it against another sized header. So I'm going to do an H3 and put coding will be fun. Then again, I close my header. Oh, sorry, you've got to make sure you have the right tags, obviously. If I would have tested that, I would have seen this back tag because the caret wasn't closed. I then save it, and I can go back and I can test my page if I go back into where my HTML document is and double click. So when my page comes up, I can see header 1 is really large, and I can see header 3 is not as large. There are 6 levels of headers. I encourage you to go ahead and test each level of header. We'll go back into our document now, and we're going to go ahead and add a paragraph. So a paragraph is where we can put a chunk of text. Let's add this under our headers. Headers are a great thing to use for outlining, by the way. That way you can see what's on the page. So for paragraph, it's the caret, P, and a closed caret. This is a sample of a paragraph. As you can see, the text is organized into one area of the page. So once I get everything I want it typed for my paragraph, I just go ahead and close it. And I will save it, and I can go back to my file and I can test it again. So go ahead and try that now. As you can see, we have a paragraph area. Let's go through a couple more common tags. So we open our file back up. Maybe we want to make our text bold. Maybe we want to just bold one area of text. So we'll say we want to bold as you can see. Before that, in my text, I open my caret, put a B for bold, close my caret, a space. Then I go to where in the text I want to stop bolding, and I go ahead and I close that tag there. What we just created is a nested tag. What that means is we have the paragraph tags on the outside is our parent tags, and then inside those tags we've nested a bold. If we save it and test it, you can now see we have bold text with the "as you can see." Oh, and I'm sorry, I've got some Flash Player issue coming up today. So you can see our text is bold here. We could do other things, like we could italicize our text. That's a pretty easy one. If we go back into our Notepad file, instead of a B, we would type an I. And maybe we're just going to italicize another line to make it look even easier to see. So let's open a caret, type the I. This is italicized text. Oh, and as you can see, there's no spell checker, so we've got to go back and check our spelling when we type things on here. Now if we save it and test it, you can see that we have italicized text. There's several different options we can do with different phrase elements. I encourage you to go through the phrase elements in your book to learn more about them. You'll also learn in your book about doing other things, like doing a block quote set of text, which is important to learn, and you'll learn how to make text a little bit stronger. So you'll want to go ahead and work through the tutorials in your book and watch the next videos to continue.